The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
Today on Mr. Media, I'll talk to Charlie White and John Biggs, co-authors of Bloggers Bootcamp, Learning How to Build, Write, and Run a Successful Blog. Stick around. This book is now in its second edition, which means there's probably a lot in here that some of you smartasses don't already know. So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is a Mr. Media interview, brought to you by Amazon.com, Audible.com, and 1-800-DIAL-DJs. Please stop by the website, MrMedia.com, click on our advertisers, support the show. And remember, there's more than 1,000 interviews available at MrMedia.com. We've been doing this since February 2007. Hope you'll find something you like. And thanks for listening. Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience that likes to argue about things such as whether it's better to use B for bold type or strong for really bold in the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. When people wrote in their private journals as recently as a generation ago, we were all spared a lot of thoughts, opinions, and arguments by people we didn't know, didn't want to know, and preferred not to know even existed. But with the advent of the World Wide Web, in its quest to open our minds to every scrap of knowledge and thought that exists now or has ever existed in the past, blogging opened the doors to a ton of crap. So before we get to today's interview with a pair of guys who can teach you all about blogging, a word of caution. Please don't waste the precious gift of words by gifting the world with another blog of nothing, or, even worse, hyperbole. Choose the words in your blog carefully and sparingly, and we'll all be better off for it. That off my chest, my guests today, Charlie White and John Biggs, are successful, accomplished online journalists whose respective credentials include Mashable, TechCrunch, and Gizmodo. They just published the second edition of their web manual, Bloggers Bootcamp. And it's packed with step-by-step instructions for creating a smart blog with the potential to make you better known in your chosen field, whether it's silk flower arrangements, political discourse, or wristwatch news. And you might even squeeze out a few extra bucks on the side. Charlie White and John Biggs, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks for being here, guys. Now, no pressure, but what's something you can tell folks about blogging right off the bat that they probably don't know?
That you gain, 40 pounds and you feel awful all the time while doing it. Over the years, it's been like Charlie remembers me from when we first started this. And I remember Charlie. Charlie used to be a 25-year-old woman. Look at him now.
Really long hair. And
he was a beautiful man. And the same thing happened to me. We've been blogging for how long now, Charlie?
It seems like 1,000 years, but
yeah,
I think it's been since about 2006.
2006.
I think when I first called you out for all the grammatical errors you guys were making on Gizmodo.
But sitting in front of your computer, drinking a lot and writing horrible things on the internet, it's exhausting. That's the first thing you got to know. And you're not going to, like, all these beauty bloggers, I don't know how they do it. They must hire like somebody like us to write for them, because there's no way they can maintain being skinny and blogging all day long.
Well, that's one of the
There's something else that people might not realize, and that is blogging can be a successful career.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people do it just for fun, but I think if you pick the right niche and you blog regularly and you build a following and you don't quit, I think you can actually be really successful blogging. You can not only express yourself and enlighten a lot of people. But some of us have been able to make some money doing this.
Sure.
Our book is dealing with people who want to start blogs, but it's also dealing with people who want to join up with a blog that's already ongoing. That's how Johnny and I got started with this, was with Gizmodo, and then with TechCrunch, and then with Mashable and Device and NBC Universal, where these blogs are already ongoing. So those kinds of concerns carry their own challenges. But I think most of our readers are going to be wanting to start a blog, or they already have a blog and they want to know how to supercharge it. And that's what Bloggers Bootcamp helps people do.
That's certainly the thing that drew me to want to talk to you guys about the book. Is, I mean, I've been at it for a long time. 94, I think we started Mr. Media as a online as a it was a syndicated newspaper column back then, and we started doing it immediately on the web, which is hard to imagine for most people now that it's been around that long.
Mm-hmm.
But and we weren't calling it a blog at the time. But so one of the things that drew me to want to talk to you guys is and to read the book is to see, okay, I feel like I know a bunch, but you can always know more. You can always do what you do better. And I noticed in the book that while you do suggest that people can make a living at it or make some money at it, you kind of pull back a couple of times when you say that, which I think is smart. You don't want to just tell people to quit their day job and start blogging. It's not an instant rush of money.
One of the things that I always hated was these snake oil guys who say like you can make millions of dollars blogging and affiliate schemes and all this other SEO garbage that they pitch. If you're a journalist, if you want to be a journalist, or if you just want to be a writer, that's who we're aiming at. We're not aiming at somebody who wants to sell a bunch of diet pills and build content around a diet pill selling engine, which people do. So God bless them, and they want to do that. For our money, I think we need more and better content online, and the source of that is the thousands, if not millions, of writers who are out there who are raring to go, who graduate from journalism school, who are writing in their spare time, who want to share something with the world, and we explain how to share that thing with the world.
Now, of course, you did say that so many bloggers are overweight and eat too much. So maybe the occasional blogger selling diet pills to other bloggers might not be a bad thing.
Well, I mean, like we could do like a bloggers. We could actually do like a physical boot camp. So Charlie and I would just run them through how to run past a buffet at an event. How to fight off other bloggers.
We have some suggestions in the book about how to deal with the inherent problems with blogging. And if you're going to be doing it full time, you end up sitting around a lot and spending a lot of time not only writing, but looking for good stories and things like that. So Johnny and I have in various stages engaged in quite a bit of exercise. I'm a walker. I do a lot of walking around the neighborhood here. In fact, I just got back from a 5-mile walk. Wow. And that really does help. If you think about great artists of the past, like Beethoven, who did a lot of walking, as a matter of fact. In fact, he got the idea for his Fifth Symphony from a bird singing when he was walking along a path in the forest near Bonn, Germany. So we're hoping that we're going to get some inspiration while we're walking from interacting with nature and getting exercise. And I've found that a lot of times your best ideas will come when you're moving around. So maybe this stereotype of bloggers hanging around in their mom's basement is not exactly the way to succeed. And I think you need to not only get yourself some exercise, but you have to get out there in the world and experience the thing you're blogging about. If you're blogging about underwater basket weaving, damn it, get underwater every once in a while.
Yeah, you got to go meet baskets. You have to go meet the people.
Johnny and I have spent countless hours in Vegas. Besides gambling and drinking ourselves under the table, we're actually going to these conventions over and over, year after year, finding out everything we can about technology and about gadgets. And that's really part of the fun for us, because that's what we're really passionate about. And we move around and we get out there and experience what it is we're blogging about. Because after all, when you're blogging, if you're not really experiencing your topic, then what real things do you have to say? What sort of new information are you going to bring to your readers? And that's why John in particular has been successful with his writing is that he brings firsthand experience. There is no one who knows watches better than Johnny. So he can tell you, he goes to these watch conventions and he experiences this, and people turn to him. They want to know, what should I think about this new watch? Let's ask John.
And I think, in addition, I think that it sort of energizes your work. If you're writing about a topic that you love and know, and you don't know anybody in the field, then you're going to have a problem. Like, for example, I started my first blog back in, I think it was 2002. It was a watch blog, and I started it because I didn't know anything about watches at all, and I figured, okay, I'll learn about this. And I got into the forums, and the forums were really kind of just a bunch of mean, weird people, and the news on watches was not, there was nothing available. So I would troll the forums looking for information. I would try to meet as many watch people as I could, go to meetups, go to different things, and try to understand this topic. And then you become an expert in your own topic. And ideally, what you do is you find something that you already know really, really well: real estate, underwater basket weaving, puppy breeding, and write about it and go for it. And that's the best way to get noticed, when you have something that's very human, very vital, and depends on your experience to really get out there.
So let's define some terms. There's websites and there's blogs, and for people who've never done a blog or who don't even think that they've read a blog, what's the difference?
Well, blogs are in chronological order, and now blogs are getting so sophisticated that people don't want to call them blogs anymore. For example, Mashable, when I started with Mashable in 2010, it was a blog. But then it started branding itself as a digital site and a digital source, because blogs somehow got sort of a negative connotation, because it just seemed like people were musing about their own personal things, like what they had for breakfast and stuff like that. But I think blogs have gotten so much more sophisticated now that people would like to call them something different. But I think they should still call them blogs, because there is a certain way to do a blog where you have a lot of facts in your posts, but then you also have actual opinions that give people your look and your take on what these facts mean, and you can add context to that. So I think people are kind of afraid of the term blog, and a lot of times people call themselves a website. Huffington Post, though, is actually, it's still a blog, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, well, even CNN is a blog. Almost, if you want to think about it, you could say it's an on-demand wire service, or a constantly running wire service that's run by one or two people, which is essentially what it is. So CNN is technically a blog. They call themselves a website simply because they have a bigger web presence. But you go there for the day's news, and they have multiple areas where the articles show up, and multiple ways of showing this news. But it's still a chronological list of news. They're not gonna bring up old news on the front page just because, I don't know, they feel like it.
Like, I think people have gone far afield with blogs, and I think in most ways that's a great thing. But John and I have decided to go back to the roots of blogs with one blog that we've been working on for the past couple of months called Top 5 Coolness Countdown. And It is a pure blog. We write posts that are similar to the ones we used to write. Remember, Johnny, back in 2006 with Gizmodo, we would write maybe 50-word posts. And now we're writing even shorter posts than that. But now with the new technology available, we're presenting huge graphics, really high resolution that work well with retina displays and high res displays. And we're just giving quick punches, and we're trying to show people. We actually, Johnny says every week, we save you hours. We've been looking all over the world for the greatest stories. So we have 5 stories for people who are so busy. Everybody's talking, oh, I'm so busy. I'm so, in the South, we call it so busy. I'm so busy. Well, people are so busy, they don't have time to go searching everywhere. Johnny and I are always listening and looking for news, and we have our ears to the ground, et cetera, looking for the top, most interesting, coolest stories. So we're presenting these things so we literally can save people hours of searching. We're doing the searching for them. We're curating. And this is where blogs started. Now it's turned into newspapers want to get in on the act. So there's some real reporting going on.
And plus, they give their own reporters their own blogs, like off of the major sites. So it's sort of they're throwing as much against the wall as they can to get things to see what sticks.
All right. Well,
There's still a place for it, though. There's still a place for these quick takes, these opinions, and Johnny and I are more than willing to tell everybody in about 25 words whether something sucks or something's wonderful.
Sure.
And then we want to show them big, glorious pictures of it because I think people are really drawn to graphics. That's one of the secrets of great blogging is you got to have great graphics because now people have more bandwidth, displays have more resolution. People want to see what the hell you're talking about.
Now, to be clear, there's a difference between a blog and a blog post. So if you call a blog like you wrote, I wrote my blog today, it's different. So if you do that, then we hate you.
I got it. We have to be careful with our terminology around
Yes.
it, fellas. I got it.
right.
And what about now? So what are some of the essential tips for someone to start a blog? What should they have in mind? And then the second question I'm going to ask you after that is what equipment or technology do they need? That'll be the second question, just so you know.
Well, what about the 4 questions?
And
What are the 4 questions? Do we have that in front of us?
I got it. Let me.
I have a cup here for Elijah if we're going down that path.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe let me get a copy of the book, Bloggers Boot Camp, now on sale at Focal Press. Okay. Anyway, but I think Johnny and I talked about this a lot when we were putting together the outline for the first edition of our book, and we think this is one of the most important things that everyone has to do when they're starting a blog, and that is they need to ask themselves 4 questions and think carefully about the answer to each one of these. The first one is, who are you? And I think there's a lot of introspection involved in that, in answering that question, because the answer to that will tell you what sort of thing you're going to do with your blogs, with everything that you do. The second one is, what do you know about? And I guess that's part of who are you, but write what you know is the old saw, and that's what the best books are written by guys who know about what they're writing about. If you don't know what you're writing about, then find out, but you have to know something. And if you don't know a whole lot, you have to be interested in finding out stuff. And that leads to the third question: what are you passionate about? If you don't know a lot about something, what do you care a lot about? What really makes you crazy or interested? Or what do you really want to do? What do you want to write about? What do you want to do? And then the fourth one is, I just said it, what are you going to write about? That's sort of the end of, that's the answer to the first 3 questions. They all lead to each other. So you figure out exactly what niche you're going to write about. And I'll say one more thing until Johnny can elaborate on this. And that is, you have to find a niche to write about. The world is so full of noise right now, so full of information, that you have to be able to cut through all that noise with a unique angle. It's not, you can write about general topics, like Johnny and I have this coolness blog. However, you do much better if you have a unique topic. If you have something that few people have written about before, if you have a blog that's about technology, you're going to be competing against millions and millions of other blogs. But if you have a more unique topic of something that you've thought about, for example, underwater basket weaving, there's probably no blogs about that. Well, of course, you're going to have a unique angle. And across the world, the strength of blogs is there are billions of people all over the world. How many people are online right now? Maybe 2 billion people. So out of the 2 billion people, there might be 100,000 people who are interested in that weird topic that you just thought of. So you might be able to dominate that market. So you want to be a big fish in a small pond.
And it seems like there's sort of a waterfall effect with the 4 questions. And I think question 2 and 3 are important because if you think about the way they're phrased, what do you know about? So say I know a lot about blues music, for example. I'm a blues scholar of blues music. I really enjoy it as a hobby. But a blues music blog, that's probably already been done, and there's probably plenty of those out there. But if you know something real, like a lot about Robert Johnson, it gives you the chance to be the expert, the guy that everybody goes to. And the blues music blogs will link to you specifically. This guy who knows everything about Robert Johnson all day long is the guy we want to link to when we talk about Robert Johnson on our site. And there are ways to do this for almost any topic. If you're like knitting, why don't you do knitting patterns for, I don't know, kitten sweaters or something like that? There's very, very specific things that you can get down to. Eventually, over time, you can expand out. But it's far harder to bring in the reins when you start out saying, I'm going to cover everything in technology from here to Tokyo. I'm going to cover it all, and then you end up having so much garbage to write that you just exhaust yourself. If you only write about smartwatches and only write about maybe Samsung smartwatches for the first couple months, and then expand out when you finally get your groove, that's the way to do it. And I guess that's one way that we keep trying to do this. Is I think the general purpose blog is kind of dead at this point. The blog about watches, it's impossible to start. The blog about technology, it's impossible to start. The blog about romance novels is impossible to start. But if you can start the blog about specific romance novelist or specific genre, then you have something good on your hands.
So just to review, passion, good. Niche, good. Unique, good. If you happen to be the guy who tempted Robert Johnson at the crossroads, also good, because you have stories to tell. Anything with kittens, still good. And wristwatch, that's taken. Did I?
Yeah, it's already taken. I already did it.
All right. And so, what about gear? I mean, equipment, apps, technology. What do you need besides a working computer and a decent internet connection?
I mean, you're gonna need maybe a point and shoot camera or a nicer camera. We like to have audio recorders and something that can shoot a little video. Trick is a lot of our phones now can do everything that you need. But if you're really serious about this, you can't whip out the phone in the middle of a big meeting with the CEO. So think about getting like a DSLR maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of that depends on what you're doing. If you're covering products like I do a lot and like John does a lot, it's a good idea. I think when you're on the road, when you're at a trade show or something, or a quick one-off event like a conference where a lot of people are talking and things like that, you might be able to get away with a smartphone if you just want to get pictures of people who you were covering and things like that. But I think John's point about DSLRs is very important. And if you're doing reviews, you really should have a high quality camera, because I touched on this before. Most people have very high resolution displays right now. You need to always author everything you do, not only for desktops and for laptops and laptops with Retina displays, but also for high-resolution phones at this point. I know at Mashable, we converted over to high-resolution graphics where anything lower than 1920 by 1080 was not acceptable. And that was about a year and a half ago. And that's for very good reason, because, again, people have a whole lot more bandwidth than they used to, and people have very high-resolution displays. So I can't emphasize enough how you have to be able to have very high resolution, not only to give you better quality of what you publish, but also give you more flexibility. Like if you take a picture in 4200 resolution, you'd like to be able to perhaps crop that down to something that shows exactly what you want to show. So that gives you more flexibility as well. And I guess I'm harping on graphics a lot, but I've always thought that was a very important part of what you're doing. Not only do you have to have good branding on your web blog, on your sites, you also have to have great pictures, because that really is one of the things that draws people in. That and the title are really what draws people in the most.
Arguably, when we all started out, like when I first started at Gizmodo, I think this was 2005. I shot with a webcam, and I tried to show people like a camera. Like there's no lighting; it was just awful. It just looked terrible. Yeah, and it shows a certain amount of respect when you actually have good content, when you actually have good video. Your sources, who, like it or not, we have to deal with on a daily basis. They want their product to at least appear that somebody cares enough about it to write intelligently about it and to take good photos of it. The watch industry, for example, hates it when you take photos of their stuff because it's not perfect. But if you get it even better than perfect in many cases, a lot of these watch blogs are doing some amazing stuff in terms of backgrounds, in terms of lighting. Then they're happy and they're more willing to work with you. And that's one thing we go into the book. You want to make your sources happy. You don't want to make them so happy that you're in their pocket, but you want to make them happy enough that they're accepting of you as a part of the media. And we are part of the media.
Products. They'll send you more products to review.
Wow.
Sure.
Well,
or they'll give you access to their CEOs and their players in their company.
I know from what I do that when I started Mr. Media as a podcast, we switched over to podcasting and then video blogging. The technology that we had available in 2007 to do this was kind of limited, and what I've been in the process of doing is having to go back and upgrade the first 400, 500 audio interviews and improve the technology. Use the technology now to improve the audio because it was really crappy then.
Sure.
And now you're right. I mean, that smartphone of yours is capable of doing pretty much everything that it took multiple devices to do, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And you can really bring a multimedia situation to pretty much any blog, any topic that you cover.
And if you don't have this, if you don't have the money or the skills to really take good pictures, you can at least take interesting pictures. So focus on faces, focus on people, make things really big in the frame. You can add filters and things to change things up a little bit, make things a little bit more interesting on the page, and that's really key.
Now, it was interesting to me that I guess the first edition of Bloggers Bootcamp was in 2012. It's only 2014. It's unusual to have to update a book after basically less than 2 years almost. What is I joked about this in the opening, but what is so different now? Is it social media? Is it the fact that you can get jobs?
I think it's just we wanted more money.
See, this is why I wanted to learn from you guys.
He tells the truth.
Yeah.
I need to learn these gimmicks. Yeah.
Well, think about it this way: this is constantly changing. When we first wrote that book, we were thinking of in terms of still being a nascent media, and when we were doing Gizmodo in 2006 to 2008, just about, we had no access to anybody. Nobody wanted to talk to us. And then all of a sudden in the 2010s, everybody wanted to talk to us. They loved blogs. Every single gadget maker, every single, CEO, they sat down with interviews with Engadget. They sat down with interviews with us. They sit down with interviews with TechCrunch. We had presidents on these sites. We had CEOs. We had Bill Gates. We had, Bono, and all these crazy people were really excited because they knew that we actually had much more reach. And now there's even more reach. And the reason why we updated it, aside from the money, is that there are students coming out of school right now that don't have anywhere to go. J-School, they don't have anywhere to go. The newspaper is dead. The local paper in, Scranton or whatever doesn't want them. And the reasoning is that they already have their people on pension, and they're not going to fire them until they die. So there's nowhere for these new journalists to go, and the only way for them to go is the blogs and the sites. And we see people saying, like, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to go to BuzzFeed, I'm going to go to Gawker. And there's only like 3 or 4 people on Gawker. There's only 3 or 4 people in each section on BuzzFeed. It's not that big an industry right now. So we're trying to explain to people, you got to solve this problem for yourself before you run off into and send your resume over into TechCrunch, because we only have 10 people in San Francisco and about 5 people in New York. And it seems like it's a massive operation. It seems as big as CNN. But you really have to really make your own mark. Have your presence felt before you can get anything done.
You have to keep up with the latest technology, and you have to keep up with the way things are changing so quickly. Just think about what the difference is between 2010, which is when we wrote the first edition. We wrote, it was 2010 when we wrote almost all of the first edition of Bloggers.
I think so, yeah.
The publishing industry has wheels that turn very slowly.
Oh God, tell me about it.
I think it was published wasn't it 2011? I'm not sure exactly when the copyright is, but we got our information and we put it down into text in 2010. Now think about how much difference there is between 2010 and 2013. We had completed all of the writing and editing by the end of 2013 for the second edition. Things have changed just in orders of magnitude almost. Well, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but things have changed a lot in 3 years. And so we wanted to bring people up to date. In addition to everything Johnny was saying, we needed to bolster the social media part of what we do, because it's gotten to be such a tremendous force. It's just a force of nature. If you can't get people to click on your articles in Facebook these days, for example, then you're not going to be able to compete against all those others who can. It's not 100% of where your traffic's coming from, but I saw over the years 2010 and 2014, I saw a tremendous difference in how much influence Facebook has and how much that can help you with your success.
Yeah,
to a lesser extent, Twitter and Google Plus and LinkedIn, but all of them, you have to be able to have a presence on there and gain a following, and then you'll get people to click into your articles you've written.
And then you also see these things like BuzzFeed, like Upworthy, and all these awful sites that are just it's just garbage. And it just but what pops up on your Facebook feed? But these things like see what happens with this crazy monkey who got into a car crash, and it's just and you click on it because it's this something in your limbic system says I want to see a dead monkey. And these sites are doing amazingly well because of this candy that they feed you all day long on Facebook.
Isn't that a downside? That's a big downside of everything.
That's a massive downside, but that's why we're trying to do this book, because we say to the writers, yeah, you can get the same, you can tickle the same limbic system intelligently, and you can get it done, and you can still do something that you enjoy, and you can still share some information. And we know how to tickle that limbic system. Charlie's the best at it. He knows. He posted a thing about it was a saw that stops as soon as it touches flesh. It was just a video, like it was like 10-second video of a hot dog going up to a power saw. And as soon as the hot dog touched the power saw blade, it stopped. And everybody at Gizmodo said, "No, Charlie, this is stupid. You shouldn't post this." And I think that was the post that got the most traffic for the year, or something like that, right?
I understand Daniel Craig really liked that video.
Yes, he did, Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Charlie.
Except he's not a hot dog.
Thank you. Maybe I should have said Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Well, that's an old reference. Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm same thinking here.
I wish I had a white cat to pet. When I think.
Well, all right. So another question relating to social media, though. So I know you say in the book that it's, a blogger today has to have a social media presence, but what is enough and what is too much? How many, for example, I mean, with Mr. Media, I post to Facebook. I post when there's a new post like this will be, it'll go to Facebook, it'll go to Twitter, it'll go to Google Plus, it'll go to LinkedIn. Some things I might put up on something called Dude Pins, which I don't understand and doesn't seem to work very well.
I don't understand that at all.
Why
would you use Dude Pins?
When or how?
Why?
I don't know, male oriented. So like if I have a attractive woman on the show, I'll post it to Dude Pins.
Oh,
that's creepy. All right.
Well, you go where the target audience is, I guess.
That's it. Pinterest, if you have some chick related thing, you'll put it up there. But Dude Pins, as I understand it, was intended as kind of the male equivalent. I just don't think it's done very well. It's not very intuitive to use.
Well, I'm using path of least resistance in a lot of the stuff I'm doing now, where for some reason I'm finding I'm getting more followers on Google Plus, and it seems like, well, this was more true before, but some stories do better on Google Plus than they do on Facebook. It seems like there's a smarter audience a little bit. They don't care as much for iPhone stories on Google Plus, though. But I think you go where the people are. If you seem to be doing better on one of these services, say you have 25,000 followers on Twitter and then maybe 1,000 on Facebook, I would say certainly work on your followers with Facebook, but concentrate your efforts on where the most people are. You go where the people are. Just like you want some money, go to the banks. That's where the money is. So it's the same thing with social media, but I think it behooves everyone who is in blogging and in journalism and in anything where they want people to know what they're doing, to go where the people are. Any network that has more than 1 billion people deserves your attention as someone whose job it is to get attention.
Sure.
So that's what we're trying to show people how to do. And it's hard. It's hard to get started. That's the hardest thing to do with social media. Like when you start with Twitter, you start out with this goose egg icon for your name, and you have 0 followers. It's a daunting prospect. So you have to keep plugging away at it. You have to keep writing compelling headlines. You have to get people's attention and be a good listener as well and interact with people.
You guys have worked between you at some of the real high-end blogs online. We've mentioned TechCrunch and Gizmodo and Mashable. Thank you. I just drew a blank. But those are really high-end compared to probably what most people picking up this book are going to be doing. What have you learned from those experiences about what works and doesn't work in more common blogging?
Human stories work best. It's always about the humans. Stories that have something to do with somebody's specific interest, those are always fun, but that's sort of a very specific niche. But if you can bring opinion or understanding or something of context, value to these stories, then you can win every time. If you don't want to win every time, then all you have to do is just post a picture and 2 lines of some garbage or whatever, and you'll fail. And that's essentially what we've discovered.
One thing I noticed, especially when working with Mashable, which got to be and still is getting to be just incredibly big. There's some 50 million unique visitors per month now. But what happens there is, just because of the sheer size of it, whatever you post gains some sort of import that you might not have if you're writing a blog on your own. So since then, Johnny and I are working on our own blogs, and we see a whole different side of this, where you have to really dig and you have to really have something unique. It's easy when you're at TechCrunch because you have this gigantic megaphone.
Sure.
But when you're working for a smaller blog, you really just are a squeak in a gigantic crowd. So you have to. So in our book, we ask 10 questions that you should ask yourself before posting something. Now, if you'll allow me, I can tell you what those 10 questions are, and then
Sure.
and those who are watching and listening can then ask themselves these questions. Or I would recommend buying our book so you'll have it written down in front of you, also available on Kindle. You can
Buy
two.
They're small.
And these are the same questions that John and I asked ourselves every time we wrote a post since time immemorial, and still ask ourselves to this day. I'll just make it short and sweet. Here it is. Number 1, is it new? You're writing something new? Johnny doesn't like to even say the word new because everything should be new, everything you write. Number 2, is there something fascinating and different about it? Number 3, does anybody really care about this? Answer that question. Why should they care? Number 4, is there something hilarious, quirky, or unbelievable about it? Like that saw that stops right when it hits human flesh. Have you had personal experience with it? We've touched on this before. Write about what you know. Is there a good graphic or photo available? Mr. Graphics here, I'll tell you got to have a good graphic. Use that as one of your criteria for whether you should post something or not. We do that sometimes with our top 5 coolness countdown. Number 7, is everybody else in the world covering it? Why do we say that? Because there might be a tremendous amount of competition. You might not have a unique angle. If you're Gizmodo, if you're Mashable, if you're TechCrunch, you might be able to dominate and grab those keywords, but you won't be able to do it if you're not some 800-pound gorilla. Number 8, is it a world's first? Is it record-breaking? That's a good thing to have in your headline. World's tallest Lego tower. I got so much traffic off that goofy post one time, and it was like 20 words, but it had a picture of the world's tallest Lego tower. Everybody wanted to see it. And keep an eye on that, bloggers, because there's taller Lego towers once every
you can
few
make an
months,
entire
especially
blog
during the summer.
dedicated to Lego towers.
Yeah, you might even do a Lego tower blog. Okay, so number 9, is it a hot topic of considerable controversy that will lure comments from readers? This is interesting. If you can get a lot of people commenting about something, if there's some really controversial thing that just happened, you might want to write about that if that's within your topic area, because people start commenting, and then what you're doing is facilitating this conversation. Because after all, as we emphasize in the book, blogging is a conversation. And if you can spark a conversation where hundreds of people are commenting, then people come back and they want to see who's responded to their comments. And a lot of readers and visitors enjoy the comments as much, and sometimes, well, with my writing, sometimes a whole lot more than the actual post. So you keep that in mind. Number 10, here's the last one. Do you have a unique opinion or spin on the topic? And that's what you bring to it. That's what I think blogging is. That's the core of blogging, where, as I mentioned, facts, and then you have to add your spin. You have to give context to the readers, because a lot of times people have already heard about the new Microsoft Surface Pro 3. They want to know, why the hell should I care about it? Is it any better than the Surface Pro 2? Should I get a laptop? Should I get a MacBook? Should I get the Surface Pro? What is the trackpad like on the Surface Pro 3? Those kinds of things are where you can give context, especially if you put your hands on these products, if you've directly experienced them. So those are the top things, top 10 questions you should ask yourself. And you can do yourself a great favor if you go through those in your mind pretty soon. To John and I, they become second nature. You think about that when you're looking for stories. But for people just starting out, it's a good idea to even put those on a list next to you and go through them. And you can actually get more traffic if you pay attention to those.
Yep.
So my takeaway from that, Charlie, would be this, that the title for this interview, when it posts on MrMedia.com, should be World's Tallest Blogging Experts Here Today.
No,
There you go.
We're not that tall. That's the trick. We're not, and plus we're not made of Legos.
Who can tell? You're both sitting down.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
All right.
Or
So
something like, these guys have the secret to blogging.
Yeah, the blogging success.
all right, let's put it to a vote.
Blogging-
Tallest bloggers or blogging secrets? What do we think?
The magic of blogging revealed.
All right, I'm going to go with whatever you guys think is going to get the most attention here. You write the title, and I'll put it up.
The magic of blogging.
Buy this
Revealed,
book,
yes.
we'll shoot this dog.
That's too many. That's too many letters.
Somebody's used that already.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's already out there.
I had a number of guys from the old National Lampoon have been on this show, so yeah.
Good, you got the
I
reference.
tried to figure out. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not cool. I'm really not. I don't want to shoot any dogs. Please don't send me email about that.
Because I do know both of your ages. I'm between your ages, but I'm closer, Charlie, to your age. So,
I'm probably older than you think.
well, no, I know exactly how old you are. It's actually in some of the material.
It's no secret. Look it
No,
up.
it's no secret. Just a little bit more. I was surprised that you guys still recommend Blogger as a platform. I used it myself for Mr. Media for some time, and resisted all the people who told me how great WordPress was until I finally got fed up with it and just thought it didn't seem like. I always thought that because it was connected to Google that it was probably indexing everything very well and it was very searchable. And come to realize, just in my case anyway, it wasn't really the case. So I was surprised that two knowledgeable and experienced guys like yourself were still recommending it to people.
We wanted to offer some alternatives. I mean, I think we talk about WordPress specifically.
Yes.
We also talk about Tumblr, which is an easy way to do if you're supposed more of an artist or artistic type, or fashion. It's a lot easier to use that. And I think we left Blogger in there just because we had it in the first one, and there was no reason to take it out, and we could just update it slightly. And a lot of people maybe they don't want WordPress, maybe they don't understand WordPress, maybe it's too complex. I think something like a Blogger is a little bit easier to grasp, and managing your own WordPress was way out of scope as well. And WordPress can get pretty hairy if you don't know what you're doing. So that's one of the things. That's one of the reasons why we added just these blogging services
We wanted
that are available.
We wanted. I agree with you, John. We wanted to serve as many readers as possible. So we included Blogger, but I really wouldn't recommend Blogger. And I'm sorry if we gave the impression that we were recommending Blogger. I would recommend WordPress, and I believe I'd have to go back and look at the text, but I think we really emphasized WordPress and if not outright recommended it. And there are some good reasons for it. First of all, it's easy to get into it. It's not. It can be very complicated. You're right, John, but it's not that hard to learn it. There is a lot of support online for it, and some service providers, some hosting services will help you with it, even though they don't say they will. They will help you with it. Second of all, it has a tremendous number of plugins. Almost anything you want to do, there is a plugin for it. WordPress is the most popular platform, so I would just recommend it.
Yeah,
100%. We just want to be sure that other people who have Blogger and other people who have the other services and other platforms are included, and we gave them some tips as well. But the most important tip is don't use them. Use WordPress.
That seems like a good tip.
There we go. That's the one.
All right. Well, folks, listen, you can find the second edition of writer Charlie White and John Biggs' Bloggers Bootcamp. learning how to build, write, and run a successful blog in great bookstores everywhere, or you can order it right now at a great price at MrMedia.com. If you're watching this on MrMedia.com, just below the video, you'll see the cover of the book. Click on it right now. You can get it. I'm sure you can get the digital version of it instantly, or you can get it sent to you via drone, probably within 30 minutes, I think.
Yeah, I can send that out. That's not a problem.
There you go. Guys, is there a website for the book? Do you have individual blog sites or websites that you'd like to give out? Now's the time.
There's a blog, there's a website, blog, whatever you want to call it. It's bloggersbootcamp.com. Easy to remember. We have excerpts from the book there. You can order the book from there, although to order it from Mr. Media.
There you go.
and you can get a taste for what we're talking about in that book right there at bloggersbootcamp.com. And you can also check charliewhite.net, where I write stuff fairly regularly. And please don't forget Top 5 Coolness Countdown, where Johnny and I catch you up on the 5 biggest, best, and coolest things every weekend, every Saturday. And we also have a podcast that goes along with that.
Yeah.
And John, do you want to
just go to John Biggs Books. You'll see my books and some stuff that I'm working on. Wristwatch Review is my other watch site if you want to read about watches, and TechCrunch is where I do my day job, basically.
Very good. Well, guys, been fun chatting with you. Really appreciate your time. We'll see how your title works. We'll go with that. And Charlie White and John Biggs, thank you so much for joining us on Mr. Media today.
All right, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
The preceding presentation was brought to you by the Realm Network.